I'm your Huckleberry. Tombstone wasn't just a Western. It was a battleground of egos, rewrites, and raw endurance that almost collapsed under its own weight. Behind the dusty gunfights and legendary one-liners, chaos brewed. Directors clashed, actors fought through illness, and history blurred with Hollywood invention. Today, we're diving into 20 weird facts about Tombstone that will make you see this cult classic in a whole new light, plus one shocking bonus fact you've probably never heard. Saddle up and pay attention. The director's swap nobody saw coming. What audiences didn't realize was that Tombstone began as Kevin Jarre's movie. Jarre, who also wrote Glory, envisioned an epic, historically accurate Western. But he was fired just weeks into filming after struggling to control the sprawling production. In his place, George P. Cosmatos, Rambo First Blood Part 2, was brought in as a hired gun director. Yet rumors persist that star Kurt Russell secretly directed most of the film, guiding performances, staging key sequences, and shaping tone while Cosmatos acted as a front. Russell himself confirmed years later that he took a leading hand, but remained quiet at the time to avoid studio fallout. The result? A movie with two shadows, one credited director and one actor who wouldn't let the project collapse. Val Kilmer filmed while gravely ill. Doc Holliday's pale complexion wasn't makeup magic. Val Kilmer was battling exhaustion, pneumonia, and chronic pain throughout shooting. He embraced Holliday's tuberculosis-ravaged fragility by literally draining himself of strength. Kilmer reportedly dehydrated himself before scenes, lying in ice baths to appear deathly sick and gaunt. His whispery, sweat-drenched performance came from real physical decline. "I just tried to make my body betray me," Kilmer later admitted. The gamble paid off. His turn as Doc Holliday is considered one of the greatest performances in Western film history. But behind the scenes, his health teetered so dangerously that producers worried he might collapse during critical sequences. Kurt Russell's brutal commitment. Russell wasn't just acting Wyatt Earp, he was living him. Determined to look authentic, he insisted on using heavy, authentic period firearms rather than lightweight replicas. The Colt Peacemakers weighed him down during long shootouts, straining his wrists. Russell also trained in horse riding until his thighs bruised and blistered. More startling was his dedication to emotional realism. He deprived himself of sleep before Earp's breakdown scenes, ensuring rawness on camera. Russell later confessed that the movie nearly broke him, yet that dedication carved Earp into cinematic legend. It wasn't performance polish, it was endurance by fire. The gunfight at the OK Corral almost went wrong. The centerpiece gunfight, the OK Corral Showdown, was choreographed with military precision, but practical effects nearly turned it into a disaster. The production used live blanks packed with more powder than usual to achieve booming authenticity. During one take, a ricochet from shattered debris struck Michael Biehn, Johnny Ringo, near the eye, narrowly missing a potentially blinding injury. The scene's dust and noise disoriented cast members so badly they sometimes fired in the wrong direction, forcing multiple retakes. What looked like stylized cinematic violence was, on set, a barely controlled explosion of chaos where any slip could have turned deadly. Real history collided with Hollywood myth. Though marketed as historically faithful, Tombstone often twisted reality. The film portrays Wyatt as a reluctant hero, but historians argue he was far more ruthless, sometimes walking the line of lawman and outlaw. The famous "I'm your Huckleberry" line was lifted directly from folklore, though scholars still debate its original meaning. Even Doc Holliday's friendship with Wyatt was exaggerated for drama. Cast members frequently clashed with Jarre before his firing about what was real versus cinematic. Sam Elliott allegedly pushed for more historical detail, while Russell argued audiences wanted myth-making. The tension created a hybrid of history and legend, a movie caught between truth and tall tale. Michael Biehn went method as Johnny Ringo. Michael Biehn didn't just play Johnny Ringo, he became him. To channel Ringo's notorious volatility, Biehn reportedly isolated himself from the cast, drank heavily after long shooting days, and carried real firearms between takes. Co-stars recalled his unpredictable mood swings on set, which sometimes bled into scenes. During the tense face-off with Val Kilmer's Doc Holliday, Biehn's hands shook not from acting but from adrenaline and physical exhaustion. Kilmer later said that he felt genuinely threatened during their duel rehearsals because Biehn refused to pull punches. That intensity paid off on screen. Their final confrontation crackles with authenticity. But it also left the crew wary, whispering that Biehn was living on a razor's edge throughout the shoot. Sam Elliott almost quit the movie. Sam Elliott, who played Virgil Earp, nearly walked off Tombstone. Elliott was deeply frustrated by the constant script rewrites after Kevin Jarre's firing. Lines he had rehearsed disappeared overnight, and he accused producers of watering down the historical grit. Elliott reportedly clashed with Cosmatos over how Virgil should be portrayed. Elliott wanted him stoic and restrained, while Cosmatos pushed for more melodrama. At one point, Elliott threatened to leave unless Russell mediated. Kurt Russell, acting as the film's unofficial leader, smoothed tensions, convincing Elliott to stay. That quiet mediation may have saved the movie. Without Elliott's gravitas, the Earp brothers' bond would have crumbled on screen. Powers Booth's villainy was too real. Powers Booth, who portrayed the snarling Curly Bill Brocious, brought so much menace to the role that it unsettled his co-stars. Booth reportedly stayed in character between takes, staring down extras with cold hostility and picking fights over tiny mistakes. During one gunfight rehearsal, he deliberately fired his blanks early, startling younger actors who weren't ready. Booth later admitted he wanted the cowboys' ruthlessness to infect the set. But the method went too far for some. One crew member described Booth as terrifying to be around, even at lunch. That raw hostility burned through the screen, but it left a chilling memory for those forced to share the set with him. The mustache controversy. Those iconic mustaches weren't just facial hair. They were a battleground. The cast grew their own to match historical portraits of the Earps and cowboys. But studio executives panicked, worrying modern audiences would find them distracting or comical. There was talk of shaving them off and adding fake mustaches later. The actors rebelled. Sam Elliott, famous for his trademark whiskers, flatly refused. Russell and Kilmer backed him, threatening to walk if forced into glue-on fakes. Eventually, the studio relented, and the mustaches became part of the movie's rugged authenticity. Today, they're as memorable as the gunfights themselves, proof that even facial hair can spark a production standoff. The heat was deadly on set. Filming in Arizona's blistering summer heat wasn't just uncomfortable, it was dangerous. Temperatures soared past 110 degrees, and actors sweltered under wool costumes, leather holsters, and wide-brimmed hats. Crew members collapsed from heat exhaustion. Extras reportedly fainted during the long OK Corral shoot. Kilmer, already sick, nearly passed out multiple times, while Elliott complained his boots felt like ovens. Production scrambled to add ice water breaks and shade tents, but even then, the conditions wore down morale. What you see as sweat dripping from faces in the movie often wasn't makeup or acting. It was the Arizona sun breaking bodies in real time. A secret war between Kilmer and Bean Val Kilmer and Michael Biehn delivered two of the most electrifying performances in Tombstone, but behind the camera, their rivalry was just as fierce. Kilmer, already a star, was irritated by Bihn's relentless method approach. Biehn, in turn, felt Kilmer hogged the spotlight with Holliday's one-liners. Crew members described an unspoken competition, each man trying to out-intensify the other in every duel, glare, and line delivery. In their iconic Latin exchange, the tension was so palpable that even the extras whispered it felt real. Though their feud never turned physical, the set buzzed with the sense that both men were gunning not just for each other in the story, but for cinematic dominance in real life. Dana Delaney's role almost went to a major star, Dana Delaney, who played Josephine Marcus, nearly lost the part to some of Hollywood's biggest names. Rumors swirled that Madonna, Michelle Pfeiffer, and even Julia Roberts were approached. The studio wanted a bankable female star to balance the testosterone-heavy cast. But Delaney landed the role after screen testing directly with Russell, their chemistry convincing producers. Yet her casting wasn't without backlash. Some executives thought she wasn't glamorous enough. Delaney later revealed she was under constant pressure to glam up, even though her real-life counterpart was far more modest. Ironically, her grounded performance is now praised for giving Wyatt Earp's arc an emotional anchor amid all the gun smoke. The script was rewritten daily. No one knew what version of the movie they were making. After Jarre's firing, the script was in constant flux. New pages arrived daily, sometimes rewritten overnight, leaving actors scrambling to memorize new lines hours before shooting. Sam Elliott hated the instability, saying he never knew if his character was coming or going. Russell kept binders of old drafts to track continuity, often rewriting his own dialogue on the spot to maintain consistency. Kilmer reportedly quipped, "Doc Holliday may die of tuberculosis, but this script is dying of rewrites." Yet somehow, the chaos birthed a tight, quotable film. The irony? The instability of the script mirrored the lawless volatility of the Old West. Billy Bob Thornton was almost cut blink, and you might miss him, but Billy Bob Thornton's cameo as a bullying card player nearly vanished. Studio execs argued his role slowed down pacing and wanted it axed. But Russell fought hard to keep it, insisting it showed Wyatt Earp's quiet intimidation power. Thornton improvised much of his dialogue, reportedly ad-libbing insults until Russell finally slapped the gun from his hand. That unscripted intensity gave the scene raw electricity, making it a fan-favorite moment. What was almost cut ended up being a springboard for Thornton's career. Just 1 year later, he broke out with Sling Blade. Without Russell's insistence, that stepping stone might have been lost to the cutting room floor. The movie wasn't expected to succeed. When Tombstone premiered in 1993, industry insiders doubted it would make a mark. Westerns were seen as box office poison, a dead genre that had been fading since the 1970s. Competing with Kevin Costner's sprawling Wyatt Earp biopic, then in development, Tombstone was expected to be overshadowed. Marketing was modest, and reviews were lukewarm at first. Yet audiences connected to its gritty realism, sharp dialogue, and Kilmer's magnetic performance. Word of mouth turned it into a sleeper hit, grossing over $73 million. Against all odds, the small Western with chaotic production became a pop culture classic, proof that sometimes the underdog wins the gunfight. Jason Priestley's role was originally bigger. Jason Priestley, riding high from Beverly Hills, 90210, was cast as Billy Breckenridge, a deputy sympathetic to the Cowboys. Early drafts gave him a larger arc, including a subplot exploring his conflicted loyalties. But as rewrites piled up, most of his material was cut. Priestley was reportedly disappointed, especially since he had campaigned to show Breckenridge as openly gay, something historians believe to be true. The studio balked, fearing backlash in 1993. What remained was a subdued character in a film dominated by larger-than-life figures. Priestley later admitted he was proud just to be part of Tombstone, but fans still wonder what the movie might have looked like had his storyline remained intact. The final duel wasn't in the original plan. The climactic duel between Doc Holliday and Johnny Ringo is one of Tombstone's most iconic moments. But here's the twist. It wasn't in Kevin Jarre's original script. History shows Ringo died alone of an apparent suicide, but the studio demanded a more dramatic face-off. Russell and Kilmer reworked scenes to stage the duel, with Kilmer pushing for Holliday to deliver his legendary "I'm your Huckleberry" line as the killing blow. Bean relished the addition, pouring every ounce of his method intensity into his downfall. Though historically inaccurate, the duel became the film's heartbeat, a pure Hollywood invention that elevated the story into mythic territory. The editing saved the movie with chaos on set and daily rewrites. The film could have easily collapsed in the editing room. Early cuts reportedly ran over 3 hours and felt disjointed. Editor Frank J. Uriost, who had worked on Die Hard and RoboCop, was brought in to salvage it. He streamlined the narrative, sharpened dialogue exchanges, and cut entire subplots, including more for Jason Priestley's character. Uriost's pacing turned a messy sprawl into a lean, quotable Western. Kilmer once said, "Frank made sense of our madness." Without that surgical editing, Tombstone might have been another forgotten 1990s flop. Instead, it became a cult icon, thanks as much to the cutting room as the set. Val Kilmer's performance overshadowed everyone. Not Russell, not Elliot, not Bean. Val Kilmer's Doc Holliday became the soul of Tombstone. Audiences quoted him endlessly. "I'm your Huckleberry," and "You're a daisy if you do" entered pop culture. Critics who panned the film overall singled out Kilmer as extraordinary. But behind the scenes, this caused tension. Some cast members resented the imbalance, feeling the movie became the Doc Holliday show. Kilmer dismissed the chatter, insisting he was just doing his job. Still, it's undeniable that Holliday stole the spotlight. The irony? Kilmer wasn't nominated for an Oscar, sparking outcry from fans who still argue it's one of the greatest snubs in Academy history. A rival Western fueled the hype. Wyatt Earp, directed by Lawrence Kasdan and starring Kevin Costner, released just months after Tombstone. Industry gossip claimed Costner had tried to sabotage Tombstone by pulling distribution strings and pressuring theaters to back his film. Ironically, his 3-hour epic flopped while Tombstone thrived. Audiences preferred the leaner, grittier version filled with sharp one-liners and intense performances. The rivalry created free publicity. Newspapers framed it as the Battle of the Earps. History crowned Tombstone the winner, solidifying its cult status. Sometimes having a rival project doesn't kill you. It makes you legendary. Kurt Russell had a secret deal with Cosmatos. Here's the most shocking truth. Kurt Russell later revealed he struck a secret agreement with George P. Cosmatos. Russell quietly directed much of the film, while Cosmatos acted as the front man to satisfy the studio. Russell even provided Cosmatos with shot lists, ensuring his vision guided the project. He kept silent for years, only confessing decades later because he didn't want to undermine Cosmatos' reputation. This revelation reframes Tombstone entirely, not just a Western, but a film shaped by an actor's hidden leadership. In many ways, it wasn't Cosmatos' movie. It was Russell's. And that's why Tombstone feels so personal, so controlled, and so unforgettable. Tombstone wasn't just another Western. It was a war behind the cameras, a clash of egos, illnesses, rivalries, and secret pacts. What emerged was messy, volatile, and unforgettable. It redefined the Western for a new generation, transforming chaos into cult legend. Val Kilmer's Doc, Russell's Wyatt, and the unrelenting tension gave us a film that still smolders today. So, next time you hear "I'm your Huckleberry," remember, it wasn't just a line. It was the truth behind a movie that refused to die.